Let's talk about classroom debates. For any language teacher, they can feel like this massive, high-stakes exercise. But how do you make sure it's not just, well, chaos? How do you turn that potential mess into a perfect storm of learning? We're going to break down exactly how to transform your ESL classroom into a powerhouse of debate. I mean, really think about it for a second. Have you ever tried to argue, to really defend a point in a language that's not your own? It's tough, right? You're not just trying to convince someone, you're also digging through your brain for the right words, the right grammar, all while the conversation is moving at 100 miles an hour. It's a huge challenge, and that is exactly where the magic happens.
And this slide really lays it all out. On one hand, you have the peril. That fear that is just going to devolve into a shouting match, or even worse, just dead, awkward silence. But on the other hand, you have the promise. When you get it right, a debate becomes this incredible engine for language learning, hitting listening, speaking, and critical thinking all at once.
So, what makes a debate the ultimate language exercise? Well, it's because it forces all these skills to work together at the same time. You can't just zone out. You have to listen, really listen to your opponent, think on your feet, build sentences on the fly, and use language that's actually persuasive. It's like sending their English skills to the gym for a full-body workout. Okay, so how do we actually build this? It all starts right here, with Phase 1, preparation. For an ESL learner, the amount of brain power this takes is just immense. They're translating in their head, they're trying to remember vocabulary, they're managing their anxiety. You just can't throw them a topic and say, ready, set, go. Preparation is without a doubt everything.
And that prep work starts with the topic. Think of the topic as the engine of the whole debate. If it's boring, unrelatable, or just plain confusing, the whole thing is going to stall out before it even gets started. You need something that really gets them talking.
So how do you pick a winner? Well, start with stuff that actually affects your students' lives. For beginners, a classic like Cats Are Better Than Dogs is perfect, is low stakes and fun. For more advanced students, you can get into something a little meatier, like the impact of social media. Oh, and here's a great pro tip. Try an icebreaker called Defend the Indefensible. You make them argue for something silly like pineapple belongs on pizza. It takes the pressure off and just focuses on the skill of arguing itself.
And here's a quick but super crucial point. The way you set up the room actually matters a lot. If everyone's just staring at the back of each other's heads, you're not going to get that debate energy. You want to arrange the desks so the two teams are facing each other, like they're in a real showdown. It sounds like a small thing, but it completely changes the dynamic.
All right, now we get to what is probably the most critical phase of all. Native speakers just know how to agree or how to politely interrupt someone. But ESL learners, they often need to be taught these phrases directly. We literally have to give them the words to use. And the key concept here is something called functional language. Honestly, this is a total game changer. Think of these as pre-made phrases that do a specific job in a conversation. They're like conversational building blocks that students can use to build their arguments, and it seriously lowers the anxiety of having to invent every single sentence from scratch.
And here's what that looks like in the real world. You're basically giving your students a toolkit. So instead of just saying, I disagree, they can learn to say, I see your point, however. It's just so much more nuanced, so much more sophisticated. Handing them a cheat sheet with these phrases on it can literally change everything.
And hey, if you want to make sure your students actually use the toolkit, here's a fantastic little tip. Gamify it. Turn that phrase sheet into a bingo card. Every time they use one of the phrases correctly during the debate, they get to cross it off. It's a super fun way to encourage them to listen and participate actively. Okay, so now our students have the words. The next thing they need is a framework to put them in. Think of structure as a safety net. Just knowing when you're supposed to speak and for how long is incredibly important for cutting down on that feeling of panic and making sure everyone gets a fair shot. For a more advanced class, a formal structure like this works beautifully. You've got clear times for introductions, for rebuttals where they challenge each other, and for conclusions. It's clean, it's organized, and it feels like a real, proper debate. But hey, that's not the only way to do it. For a really big class, the fishbowl debate is awesome. You have a small group debating in the middle, and everyone else observes and acts as judges. Or, if you really want to stretch their brains, try the switch debate. Students start arguing for one side, and then halfway through you yell switch, and they have to immediately start arguing for the opposite side. It's tough, but wow, it's amazing for critical thinking.
So, the debate is on. What's your role now? Well, it completely changes. You have to take off your teacher hat and put on your moderator hat. Your job is to guide the flow and keep time, not to jump into the argument or correct every little thing.
And this might be the hardest part for any teacher. You have to be a fly on the wall. You have to resist that powerful urge to jump in and correct grammar in the middle of everything. I mean, if a student is passionately making a point and you stop them to fix a verb tense, you just kill their momentum and their confidence. Just make a note of the errors and save them for later.
Now, in every class, you've got students who talk a lot and students who barely say a word. So how do you manage that? Well, the answer can be as simple as this number, 3.
It's called the token system, and it is a brilliant way to ensure fair play. Here's how it works. You give every student 3 tokens. Could be poker chips, scraps of paper, anything. Every time they want to speak, they have to pay with 1 token. Once their tokens are gone, they have to wait. This simple rule does 2 amazing things. It forces the dominant speakers to be more thoughtful, and it empowers the quieter students to jump in.
Here's a secret. The debate isn't actually over when the talking stops. In fact, some of the most powerful, most lasting learning happens afterwards, in the feedback and reflection phase. This is where you really lock in all the progress they've made.
So during the debate, you might hear a sentence that sounds something like this. The student makes a little mistake. They say distinct, but then you hear them self-correct to distraction. They know something wasn't quite right, and that right there, that is a golden opportunity for learning.
But instead of pointing to that one student, the best way to handle this is to write a few anonymous sentences you heard up on the board, some with little errors, some that were fantastic. Then, as a whole class, you work together to fix them. It turns feedback into a team sport instead of putting one person on the spot. It's so much more effective and way less scary.
And finally, when you declare a winner, and you should, be really clear about why they won. Victory shouldn't just go to the loudest or most aggressive team. It should go to the team that used that functional language toolkit, that built the strongest arguments, and that used persuasive vocabulary. The goal here is quality, not just volume.
And ultimately, this is why it all matters so much. When a student successfully argues a point and defends their opinion in a second language, they cross this massive psychological barrier. It's that incredible, empowering moment when they realize that English isn't just something they have to learn to survive. It's a tool they can actually use to connect with and even influence other people.